All right, I think that we are live on Facebook for day 3 of our 5-day blood sugar challenge. Get my screen oriented here for you guys, and you all let me know in the Facebook chat that you can hear me and see me. And we will hang out for a couple minutes while everybody else finds us. Hope you guys are enjoying the challenge so far. I would love to hear your big takeaways. We're really just getting started though. Today and tomorrow are really big days for the 5-day blood sugar challenge, because what we're going to talk about today and what you see on my screen here is a notorious little hormone called insulin. We're going to do a deep dive on insulin, which is a hormone that's really misunderstood, especially when it comes to diabetes management. Really, the way that Western medicine is treating type 2 diabetes is as if it's caused by insufficient insulin, when the problem's actually the exact opposite. People with type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance actually produce plenty of insulin. In fact, it's too much insulin that's driving the problem. That's the root cause of the problem. So I'm really excited to explain how that all works today. And I can see we got a good sized group of you already here, right on time. We've got Wendy, Danita, Teresa, Cassandra, Robin, Sharon, hi John. So yeah, it looks like a good group of you guys have already found our Facebook Live here. Will you guys just let me know really quick? You can see my screen, right? You can see my slide that says the day 3, a notorious little hormone called insulin. Just type yes if you can see that. Hi Kim and Laura and Sharon and Robin. Hi Mary from Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Very cool. Alicia. Yay, Alicia, finally made it live. Cool. And just so you guys know, you can always catch the replays. I send them out in the evening each day, and then I also pin them to the top of the Facebook group. Thank you guys for letting me know that you can see my screen. Hi Elaine, Deborah, Jim, Christine. Awesome. Bill, good morning. Lucy, Stone, Debbie, Linda, Hope, hi Hope, Erwin, Kara, Lisa, Gladys, Nick, Celeste, Debbie, lots of Debbies always. Anal, Robin, Marcia, Susan, Terry, Kim, Cindy, Rick, Shar, Rita. Wow, we have a lot of you guys. Okay, Lenny says replays are great. Glad to hear it. Yeah, we like to make those available. We realize that everybody's not only on different time zones, but we all have different schedules. And a lot of people work during the day and can't attend these Facebook Lives. So we make the replays available for you all, which we're happy to do. And so if you're looking for the replays, you can find them underneath. It's called the Featured tab. If you scroll to the top of our Facebook group, there's a little tab that says Featured. Just click on that and you can find all the replays as they become available. But again, if you signed up for this, then you're getting my emails and you'll get the replays in your inbox each day. So hi everybody. What did we think of day 2 compared to day 1? Was that kind of fun? Did you guys all get results? Type me if you were able to keep your blood sugar within that 30-point threshold yesterday. It was really important to us and really exciting for us to see you guys do that. We wanted to prove to you, by contrast, comparing day 1 to day 2 and showing you that you can eat a nice, big, healthy, satiating meal that won't spike your blood sugar. It's going to keep you right here. I see lots of me's rolling in. That makes me so happy. And keeping your blood sugar from spiking more than 30 points. Once you pass that 30-point threshold, we consider that a spike. And the lower, the better. Ideally, we'd like to keep you even tighter, like in a 20-point threshold. But we do the 30-point threshold because the meters are not 100% accurate. We talked about that on day 1. They have that 15% margin of error. But if you kept it within a 30-point threshold, eating a nice big meal, you did amazing. If you didn't, then you're going to try again today and through the remainder of this challenge. We're going to keep following those same guidelines, testing before and after meals, following the guidelines that we've written out for you. I'm very confident that if you actually follow the instructions that we've given you, you will have no problem staying within that 30-point threshold, even if you eat a huge meal. Because it really all comes down to those carbohydrates and those foods that are spiking our blood sugar. We talked all about the macronutrients yesterday. If you didn't catch day 2, make sure you go back and watch the replay. Every day of this 5-day challenge kind of builds upon itself. So it's really important that you watch the trainings in order, or if you miss a day that you go back and watch it, because what we learned yesterday is really foundational to your understanding of what I'm going to teach you today. Day 3 and day 4 is where these trainings get a little more advanced, because we're talking about some higher level concepts like insulin, right? So I'm so glad to see so many of you guys typing me in the chat that yesterday you were able to keep your blood sugar within that 30-point threshold. That is awesome. If you do that consistently, I promise you, you will be very, very happy with your next A1C. Yep, and I see some people sharing that their blood sugar actually went down after they ate. So maybe their blood sugar, let's say, for example, was 150 before their first bite of lunch, and then 60 to 90 minutes later, they tested again, and it went down to 140. So it went down negative 10 points instead of going up. This is really, really cool when that happens too. And it's not unusual. It just means that you ate a very blood sugar friendly meal. It didn't cause an increase in your blood sugar. So if you guys stayed within that 30-point threshold or even went down, that's really, really cool. And the other thing I'll mention, because I forgot to mention this, is a lot of you guys are on blood sugar lowering medications. And so, for example, on day 1, some of you guys tested like we told you to. You tested a meal like oatmeal or rice and beans, or a very carb heavy meal, like what we wanted you to do for day 1. And you might not have seen as big of a spike in your blood sugar as we expected you to. And that's really because your medications are artificially lowering your blood sugar. So we want you to continue taking your medications as prescribed throughout this 5-day challenge. But what we see a lot is that your blood sugar, obviously your blood sugar medications are going to override your body's natural process. And so they're going to, sometimes your blood sugar will be lower than it naturally would be without the medication. I mean, that's exactly how they work, right? So if we see someone who eats a meal and their blood sugar drops a lot, we can attribute that to the medications. I mean, 10, 15 points, not unusual. Sometimes we start eating food and our body stops releasing all that sugar that's been stored in our body because we have food coming in. And so your blood sugar afterwards might actually be lower. But when we see like a 30, 40, 50 point drop, it's probably because you took a medication that stimulated insulin, which we're going to talk about today. So very cool. I'm so happy to see so many of you guys had a lower blood sugar by day 2. That was our promise to you when you signed up for this challenge. Our promise to you was that you could be celebrating your blood sugar with us as early as day 2. So I'm glad to see that we followed through on our promise. Our other promise was that we were going to get you these results with just 2 finger pricks a day. 2 times to test your blood sugar a day. So all we're doing is testing 1 meal a day, once before that first bite, and then once 60 to 90 minutes later. So we are following through on our promises. I know some people thought it sounded too good to be true, but here we are with hundreds of you joining us and sharing that you got those results. So let's go ahead and dive into our day 3 training, all about insulin. So here's what I want to tell you guys about insulin. Insulin can be your greatest weapon or your worst enemy. And by the end of today's training, you're going to understand exactly what I mean by that. I'm teaching you this week to harness the power of insulin to your advantage. Right now, all of you are here because you've been using insulin the wrong way, totally unknowingly. And what people need to understand is it doesn't matter if the insulin's coming naturally from your pancreas or from an injection or another medication that you're taking. The outcome is exactly the same. So insulin can be your greatest weapon or your worst enemy. And there's a strong connection not only with the insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, but also with weight gain or weight loss. It's all connected to insulin. High blood pressure, all these other symptoms that go along with type 2 diabetes actually come back to insulin. These are not isolated issues. They're all related to the same root cause. And the beauty in that is that because they all have share the same root cause, they also share the same exact solution, which is really exciting. You also learned yesterday, through testing day 1 compared to day 2, that you actually don't need to eat less food. You just need to eat the right food. I gave you the example yesterday that, 2 different meals that have the same exact amount of calories can have 2 totally and wildly different impacts on your blood sugar. So we talked about those macronutrients yesterday and how carbohydrates are a double whammy. They raise our blood sugar the most, and they enter our bloodstream the fastest. And so if you take a 500 calorie meal that's really heavy in carbs, you're going to see your blood sugar spike. And if you take a 500 calorie meal that's really low in carbs and high in protein and fat, your blood sugar, which is what you saw yesterday, is going to stay right here. You're going to have no problem staying within a 30-point threshold. Compared to day 1, some of you guys saw your blood sugar spike over 100 points. That's unacceptable, and that's keeping you stuck. Not only that, but that's exactly what most people are being told to do. They're being told to eat oatmeal. They're being told to stop eating animal protein and to eat things like rice and beans and quinoa instead, which spike the heck out of our blood sugar. So it really doesn't make sense when you understand the science behind it, when you see firsthand how your numbers respond, right? So just remember, all of this is not a calorie problem. This is an insulin problem. Again, by the end of today's training, you're going to have a really clear understanding of how to use insulin to your advantage. So let's talk about insulin and what insulin actually is. So first of all, insulin is a fat storage hormone produced by the pancreas. It's an anabolic hormone, meaning it builds things, it creates things, and it's really good at building fat, right? So if you've got weight to lose, if you've got extra body fat, if you've got non-alcoholic fatty liver, if you've got fatty pancreas, these are problems of excess insulin. When insulin is high, we store fat. It's really good at building fat. It's a fat storage hormone, okay? So insulin is a fat storage hormone produced by our pancreas, okay? Second bullet point, insulin is your body's only way to lower your blood sugar. I'm going to say that again. Insulin is your body's only way to lower your blood sugar. So anytime your blood sugar is high, you can guarantee your insulin levels are also high, okay? So anytime your blood sugar is high, insulin follows. Insulin follows blood sugar because that's part of its job. Its job is to get your blood sugar down anytime it's too high. Third bullet point, people with type 2 diabetes produce plenty of insulin, okay? In fact, the definition of insulin resistance in type 2 diabetes is something called hyperinsulinemia. Hyper meaning too much, excess, insulinemia, too much insulin, chronically high around the clock. If any of you guys here were to have your insulin levels tested, most people do not. In fact, 99% of people with diabetes never have their insulin levels tested. But if you were to get your fasting insulin levels tested, you would see that your insulin levels are high. Does this make sense why maybe so many people are struggling with weight gain and weight loss resistance? Meaning it's really stinking hard to lose body fat. It's really stinking hard to get the scale to budge. When your insulin levels are high, it blocks your ability to burn fat. This is the connection between obesity and type 2 diabetes. And I do understand we have people here who are maybe underweight or at an ideal body composition who are dealing with type 2 diabetes or prediabetes. The explanation behind that is that not everybody suffers from all of the symptoms, right? And we're going to talk about that tomorrow, I believe, all the symptoms that go along with type 2 diabetes. So some of you here, for example, have kidney issues. Some of you, it affects your vision. For some of you, it affects your blood pressure. Some of you have weight gain, right? But not everyone here suffers from every single symptom. So some people the symptoms of diabetes just manifest differently in different people, right? For some people, it affects their vision. Some people, it affects their kidneys. Some people, it causes fatty liver. Some people get the weight gain. Some people don't get the weight gain. Some people don't get the vision problems. But the majority of people do struggle with difficulty losing weight because of insulin. Okay, so is this making sense so far, you guys? And also, this is where Western medicine is failing miserably. This is where modern medicine is failing miserably to treat type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, is because they're looking at this all wrong. They don't have a very good understanding of how insulin works, and the fact that adding more insulin, which is what most of these diabetes medications is doing, adding more insulin is like throwing gasoline on the fire. Okay, so you guys tell me, does this make sense? Yes or no? It would be helpful before we move on to just getting an understanding of what insulin is and how it works. Try to drink my coffee before it goes cold today, like it has the last 2 days. It's really hard with all this talking. Okay, Rosie says, yes, that works. Makes sense. Okay. So let's move on. Okay, Brenda, Carmen, yes. Is insulin testing common in annual blood work? Lenny and Alicia ask. No. If we looked at insulin, if doctors would simply look at a person's insulin levels, they wouldn't be treating diabetes, type 2 diabetes, with insulin injections. Nobody would be prescribing that because they would go, holy heck, your insulin levels are off the charts. Why would we add more insulin to the problem? Because what we're going to talk about next is the problem isn't a lack of insulin. A problem is insulin resistance caused by so much insulin circulating in your system all the time that you develop a resistance to it. We need to make you sensitive to it again. That's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so I'm glad this is making sense so far. So what is insulin resistance? We hear that word all the time. It's really a buzzword at this point, but people don't actually grasp what it means to be insulin resistant. So insulin resistance is when your body becomes desensitized to insulin. So your body becomes desensitized to insulin, meaning you need more than the normal amount of insulin to keep your blood sugar in range. Does that make sense? It makes sense because your insulin levels are high, right? If we were to actually look at your blood, at your fasting insulin levels, we would see it's high because you need more than the normal amount of insulin to keep your blood sugar in range. Remember, one of its big roles in the body is to keep your blood sugar in range. Anytime your blood sugar is high, insulin follows. Its job is to take that sugar out of the blood and pack it away somewhere safe, because that high blood sugar wreaks havoc on every system of your body. It's the chronically high blood sugar, the 200s and beyond, all the time, that's damaging your eyes, damaging your kidneys, causing high blood pressure, causing inflammation. That's what causing these problems. So insulin's job is to get that sugar out of the blood and store it away. And it's going to store it away wherever it can. It's going to pack it away in your liver. It's going to pack it away in your muscles. And when everything's saturated with as much sugar as it can hold, guess what? We have an unlimited capacity to store the rest as body fat. And that's the connection. Insulin's going to pack away all that extra sugar out of your blood and pack it into body fat when it runs out of space in your muscles and your liver, which only have a limited capacity. So just remember, when your body becomes insulin resistant, this is a big problem. Look at the bottom of my slide. This is a big problem because insulin is your body's only way to lower your blood sugar. Insulin's your body's only way to lower your blood sugar. There's no other way. We don't have any other hormones that do that. Only insulin. So we need to get you insulin sensitive enough again to where insulin can actually do its job. And we're going to keep going into this a little deeper. I know you guys are saying this makes sense, but it's frustrating, right? You guys are probably getting a little triggered right now because you're thinking, wow, I've been going about this all wrong. But also, you guys are just following doctor's orders, right? You go to the doctor because you have this diagnosis and you're following their advice. Yes, Dawn says she understands, but this is so different from what doctors and nutritionists say. I totally understand that. And what I really want to share with you guys this week is that I don't expect you guys to trust me blindly. I understand I'm just another stranger on the internet. But hopefully, what you guys are seeing in your numbers is helping me gain your trust, because your numbers don't lie. And what I'm sharing with you guys this week is not, this is not theory. This is fact. This is based in science. And I know everybody says that, right? But really, there's a lot of theories out there about what causes insulin resistance that are not based in solid science. There's a lot of, for example, one theory I see a lot that's really supporting the plant-based or vegan agenda is that saturated fat is what's causing insulin resistance. You guys, it's not. Does that really make sense? Look at what fat does to our blood sugar. Nothing. It stays right here. It doesn't do a dang thing. Look at what carbohydrates do to our blood sugar. Let's reverse engineer it a little bit. What happens when you go vegan, vegetarian, or plant-based? Your carbohydrate intake goes up. So therefore your blood sugar goes up. So does it really make sense to do a vegan, vegetarian, or plant-based diet? Absolutely not. Not when you reverse engineer the issue and look at your numbers. Okay, so you guys are saying this makes sense. I understand it's still a little confusing at this point. Trust me, we're going to keep going deeper and deeper. But what I really want you guys to just understand is that insulin resistance means your body's desensitized to insulin, meaning it takes more insulin than the normal amount to keep your blood sugar in range, okay? And insulin is your body's only way to lower your blood sugar when it's high. And anytime your blood sugar's high, you can bet that insulin levels are also high. So I mentioned the word insulin sensitivity earlier, and I always love to throw it out there and ask you guys, how many of you guys have heard of insulin sensitivity? Type me in the chat if you've ever heard the words insulin sensitivity, because what I find is most people are not talking about this. A little bit more in the last 6 months or the last year, but when I used to run this 5-day challenge a couple years ago, the audience said, nope, never heard of insulin sensitivity, only heard of insulin resistance. And the truth is that insulin sensitivity is the opposite of insulin resistance. And I can guarantee, I promise you, I can say this with absolute certainty, that insulin sensitivity is the only solution to type 2 diabetes. I promise you that. There's no other solution. How you get insulin sensitive is what we're teaching you this week, but I can guarantee the only way that you will become, that you can put type 2 diabetes in remission and get off these medications is to become insulin sensitive. So the opposite of insulin resistance is insulin sensitivity. That is the goal for everybody here in our entire nation. It's actually estimated, this is so sad, but this is the health of our nation. I've heard statistics. I don't know how accurate they are, but I believe they probably are very accurate, that something like it's either 96 or 97% of the US population is not metabolically healthy, meaning they are not insulin sensitive. Everybody should be insulin sensitive. It just means insulin's able to do its job. When your blood sugar's high, insulin comes out and it puts that sugar, gets that sugar out of your bloodstream and keeps your blood sugar in that healthy, normal range. That's all it means. When you're insulin resistant, your blood sugar rises from what you eat and it stays elevated. And insulin stays elevated because try as it might, it can't get that sugar out of the blood. You're resistant to it. So just know, at the bottom of my slide here, that insulin resistance and insulin sensitivity, they're like a spectrum. It's not black or white. You're not either or. You fall somewhere on the spectrum. And this is repairable. So just because maybe you're very insulin resistant right now, that doesn't mean that you're there forever. You can move slowly but surely towards the more insulin sensitive side of the spectrum. And it goes both ways. You could be very healthy and insulin sensitive right now, which everybody started off as at some point in their life, and slowly but surely become more and more insulin resistant. I'm going to give you guys an analogy today that's going to really hit this point home. And after my analogy, I think you'll have a really good understanding of what I'm talking about here. Okay. I want to see where I want to give you guys the analogy. So what causes insulin resistance? Let's talk about that really quick and then I'll share my analogy. What causes a person to become insulin resistant is high insulin levels. Chronically high insulin levels, meaning ongoing. It's totally normal and natural and expected that you could be insulin sensitive, sit down for a meal, super healthy person, you eat a meal that's high in carbohydrates, your blood sugar will rise, insulin will follow. That's not a problem. Then your blood sugar comes back down. Little spurts of acutely high insulin levels is not the problem here. It's the chronically high insulin levels that causes the insulin resistance. It's the day in and day out. So let's talk about the analogy I want to share with you guys, because this is really going to, I think, hit home your understanding of how this works. So one example I like to share is one that most people can relate to, and it's building up a tolerance or resistance to alcohol. So we all know, if you haven't experienced this yourself, we all know someone who has a really high tolerance for alcohol, right? Meaning it takes a lot of booze for this person to get a buzz or to get drunk, okay? That didn't happen overnight. That's because they've built up a resistance to alcohol by drinking often, right? Just like you can build up a resistance to insulin by keeping your insulin levels elevated often. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's take two different people, okay? Yes, Dr. Benjamin Bickman, Claire, is like my go-to resource. He's a scientist who specializes in insulin resistance. That's why I'm saying I didn't pull these theories I didn't make these up. Dr. Benjamin Bickman, Dr. Jason Fung, there are very smart people I've learned these concepts from. And then I've taken them and kind of tried my best to put them into layman's terms so I can reach the masses, because those guys speak at a very high level that a lot of people don't follow. So really taking their teachings and making them actionable with real food and lifestyle choices. So let's take two individuals, okay? Let's say one person has never drinks alcohol, okay? They drink alcohol maybe a couple times a year on special occasions, okay? And then we have another person, and he drinks 7 days a week, all right? So let's say the one person is very sensitive to alcohol, right? So if they go out and it's Christmas Eve and they're having a nice party and this person has a couple cocktails, they're going to feel pretty buzzed off 2 or 3 drinks, right? Versus the guy who drinks 7 days a week, he might have 5, 6, 7 cocktails and not feel anything, you know? So let's also take these two people, and let's say that the person who never drinks alcohol, right? They drink on Christmas Eve, they got a buzz. Let's say they start drinking after that. Let's say they start drinking every single day, starts with 2 drinks a night. They're feeling a little buzz off of that, but eventually those 2 drinks don't have that effect anymore. So what are they going to do? What are they going to do when 2 drinks don't give them a buzz? They can increase it to 3. They can increase it to 4, right? Maybe eventually 4 drinks no longer give them a buzz because they've built up, we call it a tolerance, right? But it's actually a resistance. So they're building up a resistance to alcohol to where it no longer has its effect anymore. So we're doing the same thing with insulin. Initially, we're all insulin sensitive. We eat a meal that spikes our blood sugar, insulin comes out and brings it right back down. Insulin has a strong effect on us. Just like alcohol initially has a strong effect on us. If that person who never drinks alcohol went to that Christmas Eve party and had 5 cocktails, they'd probably be throwing up in the toilet, right? They'd be so blackout drunk they wouldn't feel good because they don't have that tolerance, right? They build up that tolerance over time. So let's say this person, this is what we're doing. This is how we're treating type 2 diabetes in the United States. This is how modern medicine is treating type 2 diabetes. Let's say this person goes to the doctor and says, "Hey doc, I am no longer feeling a buzz when I drink, 4 cocktails. It doesn't do anything for me anymore. What should I do?" Doctor has two options. Doctor can say, well, why don't we go ahead and increase it? Let's go ahead and start drinking 6 cocktails a night. That'll do the job. So they go home, start drinking 6 cocktails, get that nice buzz going. They're like, okay, that worked. But eventually, now the 6 cocktails isn't giving them a buzz. So they go back to the doctor. Doc, the six cocktails isn't doing it for me anymore. What do I do? Oh, increase it to 7. Try 7. Come back in a few months. You see this vicious cycle. They're becoming more and more insulin resistant, right? Because they're increasing, or I'm sorry, more and more resistant to the alcohol because they're increasing their intake, right? We're doing the same exact thing with insulin, right? It does not matter if the insulin is coming from your pancreas or from a medication. The outcome is exactly the same. So we're going to the doctor and saying, my blood sugar's high. Your blood sugar's high because you become insulin resistant, right? Because your insulin levels have been so high for so long that you've built up a resistance to it. So you go to the doctor, and what does the doctor do? Instead of saying, okay, let's make some changes to get your insulin levels down so you become sensitive to it again, instead the doctor goes, here's a prescription, and little do you know that prescription is increasing your insulin levels. It's throwing gasoline on the fire. So just like that person had two options, they could either increase their alcohol intake if they want to get a buzz, or the better option would be to take a break from alcohol. And guess what's going to happen? What's going to happen if somebody who's been drinking 5, 6 cocktails a day every single day, what happens if they quit drinking for 3 months? And then they go out one night, they haven't had a lick of alcohol for 3 months. What's going to happen if they go out one night and they have 6 cocktails? Any guesses? They've become, during that 3 month of abstinence, they've become sensitive to alcohol again. So when they go in 3 months later and have 5 or 6 cocktails, they're going to get drunk. They're going to get a buzz, right? Because they're sensitive to it again. So again, they go to the doctor has 2 choices. They could say, hey, quit drinking for a bit. And then when you drink in the future, you're going to feel the effects again because you're sensitive to it again. Same thing with insulin, you guys. We can do the same exact thing. We can throw gasoline on the fire, which will work and lower your blood sugar, right? If you add more insulin, just like adding more alcohol, you can have that effect again, right? So you go to the doctor and you can either do something. Okay, Elaine says I can use her as an example. You can either, use something. You can go to the doctor and the doctor can say, hey, increase your alcohol intake or increase your insulin. It'll get your blood sugar down. Increase your alcohol and you'll feel that buzz. Or they could say, hey, let's take a break because it's the high alcohol intake that is causing you to become resistant and alcohol is losing its effect. It's the high insulin levels that's making your blood sugar lose its effect and not able to come back down. So you guys, does this make sense so far? We have 2 options. One's a really good option that's going to make you healthier, right? And allow you to get off of these blood sugar medications. And that option is keeping your insulin levels down. The other option is the exact opposite. You're throwing gasoline on the fire by increasing your insulin levels. And this is your homework assignment today, which we're going to go over here in a little bit, is to Google your medications. And what you're going to find is that most diabetes medications are actually increasing your insulin levels even more. So it's akin to your doctor saying, oh, go ahead, increase your alcohol intake and you'll get that buzz again. Oh, let's increase your insulin levels that are already high. Let's increase your insulin levels and we'll get your blood sugar back down. Does it work? Yeah, just like drinking more alcohol is going to work if someone's resistant to it. But it's not. Yeah, you guys are so funny. Your comments are a little delayed. So you guys are answering when I said, what's going to happen if he drinks 3 months later? You guys say, he's getting drunk. They're going to fall on their face. Yeah. So I'm glad this is making sense so far. So obviously, you guys, we don't want to be throwing more insulin at the problem. We do not want to make you more insulin resistant, just like we would not encourage someone who drinks really heavily to just drink more if they want to get a buzz, right? So it makes sense. So just remember, what causes the insulin resistance is the chronically high insulin. It's the ongoing high insulin levels. And again, when we reverse engineer it, we can see that it's anything that causes high blood sugar, insulin follows. So why are we recommending these really high carbohydrate diets to people with type 2 diabetes? I mean, if you actually just do the math on it, they're recommending 45 grams of carbs per meal plus 20 grams per snack. That's the mainstream guidelines. That's what most dietitians are teaching you guys. You guys do the math on that. That's a high carbohydrate diet. That's keeping your insulin levels elevated. I have never seen, I'm sorry to say this, it's so sad. I have never seen someone reverse type 2 diabetes following those guidelines. Never. I haven't seen it. I see people stay on medications for the rest of their life and, quote, manage their diabetes with medications for the rest of their life as they become no healthier, right? But I've never seen someone actually get off the medications and reverse type 2 diabetes following those guidelines. And you can't out exercise this. I mean, try it as you might. That's really not the solution either. This is rooted in diet. Okay, so you guys are saying this makes sense. So just know that persistently high insulin is what causes insulin resistance, and persistently low insulin levels reverses it, which is really stinking cool, right? It's so exciting, and it's why I love what I do, and it's why I, went into, for the longest time, I didn't think type 2 diabetes was reversible. And so I didn't want to go into that field. I thought, like, why would I go into something that I can't actually help people? But when I cracked the code and learned that this is all it comes down to, it was easy. It's like, oh, you can help people every single time. So just all we have to do is harness the power of insulin. All we have to do is strategies to keep your insulin levels as low as possible, as often as possible. And it's really not that hard to do. And it's exactly what we did yesterday with you on day 2. We gave you that cheat sheet, that 3 columns of foods to make your meals from. And when you eat that way, your insulin levels don't spike. Your insulin levels stay really low. And so all we're doing is using science, really, and the science behind those 3 macronutrients, protein, fat, and carbs that we covered on day 2. All we're doing is using that information to keep your insulin levels down. And if you do that consistently, you will be more insulin sensitive next month, by this time next month, than you are right now. And in 3 months, you'll be very, very happy with your A1C. That's how my clients get such incredible results, you guys. I mean, we don't make this up. We have hundreds of success stories. You guys are going to find out for yourself. I see questions about your medications. You guys are going to find out for yourself how these medications work. That's going to be your homework assignment, which I'll share with you in a minute. Okay, so let's talk about what causes high insulin. It's mostly food, but food is not the only culprit, okay? So the answer is that anything that increases your blood sugar will increase your insulin levels. Remember, insulin's primary job is to lower our blood sugar when it's too high. So anytime your blood sugar rises, insulin is going to follow, okay? So the number 1 culprit is food, especially carbohydrates. We have learned this week that carbohydrates spike the heck out of our blood sugar, and therefore they spike the heck out of our insulin levels, okay? But the other topics that we'll talk about, the other culprits, certain medications can cause a rise in our blood sugar and therefore a rise in our insulin. So specifically, steroid drugs, so like corticosteroids, or if you've ever been, gosh, what are some of the really popular ones? I'm kind of spacing right now. But if you've ever been on any steroid medications, which are pretty common, you will see your blood sugar will rise a lot on those. And I'm not saying don't take them. That's what modern medicine is good for. If you need a medication and you have an acute infection or an illness, take those medications, but know that it's not uncommon. In fact, it's expected that your blood sugar will rise when you're on a steroid drug. I'm sure some of you guys here have actually been in that situation. Almost actually every time I run this challenge, we have people in the chat sharing that they were prescribed some kind of a steroid drug, and their blood sugar shot up into the 300s or 400s. So that happens all the time. And it's very normal and expected that those drugs do that. The problem becomes when you stay on those drugs long term. It's okay for a few days, right? But when you stay on a medication long term that causes high blood sugar, then you're developing insulin resistance. Other medications that can cause a rise in blood sugar are certain cancer medications. Again, I'm not saying don't take these medications. This is just information for you guys. And then the last culprit is stress. And when I say the word stress, I'm talking about physical stress, like pain, illness, infection. That's physical stress on the body. Lack of sleep is physical stress on the body, as well as emotional stress. So this can be, you have work deadlines that are stressing you out. You're having marital issues, financial issues, stress. Maybe you're caring for your aging parents. That's the season of life a lot of my clients are in. They're caretakers for their aging parents. That's a very stressful time of life. So stress also causes an increase in our blood sugar and therefore an increase in our insulin. So now looking at this list and seeing all these culprits for high blood sugar, which cause high insulin levels, which of these is the most within our control? Which of these are we able to control right now, today? Yeah, prednisone was the one, Candace, thank you. Yeah, prednisone was one of the steroid drugs I was trying to think of. So which of these, food, medications, or stress, is the most easy for us to control right now, today? The cool thing is it's the one that has the strongest impact on our blood sugar to begin with, which is food. So you guys are seeing that firsthand today. You can get your blood sugar down by your food choices and what you eat. Yep, you guys nailed it, food. Yeah, we can't control if you are super sick and need a steroid medication or cancer medication. That's not within our control, right? If you are super stressed out, that's really hard to control as well. I mean, we can practice stress management techniques. You can go to therapy, you can journal, you can meditate, you can go to yoga, you can go for a walk, you can find a calming activity. Great and helpful for sure, but it's not as easy to control as what we're putting in our bodies. So we can control food as early as our next meal, which is what's really exciting because really that's the biggest culprit here to begin with. So again, I mentioned for a second earlier that insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance fall on a spectrum. These are not black and white issues, okay? You're not either or. You're not one or the other. It's a spectrum, okay? And some of you guys are really, really insulin resistant. So that's those of you who, you might be on 3, 4, 5, 6 diabetes medications, including insulin injections, right? You guys are further over on the very insulin resistant side of the spectrum. And then there's people who are very insulin sensitive. These are people who do not have type 2 diabetes or even pre-diabetes. And then everybody else falls somewhere in between, right? So just know that this is not a black or white issue, and it goes both ways. You can take someone who's very insulin resistant and keep their insulin levels low, and they will for sure move towards the insulin sensitive side of the spectrum. Just like you can take someone who's insulin sensitive. Let's use me as an example. I'm very insulin sensitive right now. There was a time in my life when I also was dealing with some insulin resistance. But let's say you take me, I'm very insulin sensitive right now. If I start eating cereal for breakfast, pasta for lunch, and sandwiches for dinner, right? All these high carb meals. And I snack in between meals. I guarantee you guys, I will be getting more and more insulin resistant. So it goes both ways. So we can take you guys. You guys are over here on the insulin resistant side. We can take you and move you towards the insulin sensitive side of the spectrum. But no, this is where this is a really common question. If type 2 diabetes is reversible, or people will argue, they say it's not reversible. It can always come back. Yeah, of course it can always come back, right? Just like, let's go back to the alcohol analogy. You take the guy who drinks 7 days a week, 7 cocktails a day, and he goes sober. He can go sober for 3 months. He could go sober for 3 years. But guess what? If he starts drinking again, he can develop his resistance to alcohol all over again, right? So let's say he goes sober for 3 years and then he relapses and he starts drinking 7 days a week again. Now he's built up that tolerance again. But if he went sober for 3 years and he started and he just went on a bender one night and had 10 cocktails, he's going to be sick, right? He hasn't built up that tolerance again. It's going to take time for him to build back up that tolerance. But guess what? All over again. He could go on a bender. He could start drinking for a whole nother year, become very resistant to alcohol again. And then again, he could still get sober, clean up his act, and become sensitive to alcohol all over again. So it goes both ways. We can wax and wane, but just know that yes, you can put diabetes in remission. You can reverse type 2 diabetes by becoming insulin sensitive. And then if you start going back to your old ways, it can come roaring back. And then you can reverse it again. We don't want to do that, obviously. We want you guys to sustain your results. We want you guys to become insulin sensitive and then stay that way for the rest of your life. And we're confident you can with the right support and know-how and education. But yeah, it goes both ways. So hopefully that makes sense. You guys are somewhere on the spectrum. Some of you guys here are very insulin resistant. Some of you guys are somewhere right in the middle. And probably none of you here are insulin sensitive, because the whole reason you signed up for this is because you're insulin resistant, right? And by the way, I'll just mention this really quickly. By the time a person's A1C crosses over the threshold of 5.7 or higher, you can guarantee this person has been developing insulin resistance for a very long time. The A1C is a late marker to change. Again, if we were just looking at fasting insulin, we would see, oh crap, like before a person's A1C is even over 5.7, their insulin levels are rising higher and higher and higher. So if we were looking at that, that should be the real pre-diabetes. But instead, we're waiting till the A1C crosses that threshold and going, oh, now it's a real problem. Okay, so here is your homework assignment for today. Today, you're going to turn to Dr. Google and you're going to type in, how does the name of your medication work? And you're not going to stop at the first thing you read, because what you're going to find is that if you type in, how does glipizide work? How does glimepiride work? How does Farxiga or Mounjaro or Ozempic or metformin? When you type this into Google, what's going to happen is the first search result is going to say, this medication works by helping people with type 2 diabetes lower their blood sugar and A1C. That is surface level. We don't want to stop there. We want to know, how does it work on a physiological level? Like, what is it actually doing inside of our bodies? How is it lowering our blood sugar? How is it lowering our A1C? So what we're really looking for is to learn whether or not this medication is stimulating our pancreas to produce more insulin. And what I will share with you right now is that most of them do. Most diabetes drugs are causing your pancreas to pump out more insulin. Why is this a problem, you guys? Why is it a problem that our medications are increasing our insulin levels? At this point in today's training, I think that you guys have a very clear understanding that adding more insulin is like throwing gasoline on the fire, right? It's like sending the person off who's drinking alcohol and says, I'm not getting a buzz from 4 drinks anymore. What do I do? And telling them, well, go ahead and try 6 drinks. Try 6 cocktails. That should do the job. Sending them out the door. Does it work? Yeah. Right? Just like your medications work. You leave the doctor's office and you start that glipizide, that glimepiride, that Mounjaro, that Ozempic. What happens? Your blood sugar does come down. It works at first. But what happens 3 or 6 months later? Your blood sugar and your A1C start climbing up again, right? Now what are you going to do? You go back to the doctor and they say, oh, let's increase the dose, or let's add another medication. So what's really happening is when you do that, that's akin to saying, oh, okay, 6 drinks, 6 cocktails isn't working. Let's try 8. right? Instead of saying, let's actually address the root of the problem of your high blood sugar and get your insulin levels down, they're just throwing gasoline on the fire. Does it work? Yes. It works in the sense that it's driving down your blood sugar, just like adding more booze is going to work to get a person a buzz. When they're resistant to 6 cocktails, they can try 8. Is that a good solution? Heck no. So I hope that that makes sense, you guys. Yep. Okay. So your assignment today is to Google how your medications work. Don't stop at the surface level answer. Big Pharma is really good at making these medications sound so amazing. Oh, they make you less insulin. This drug works by making you less insulin resistant. They make you more insulin sensitive. They lower your blood sugar and A1C. How? How are they doing that? And if you look into it, a lot of them will say something like, when you look into how does it work, it works by stimulating the pancreas to release more insulin. And remember, it does not matter if the insulin is coming from your pancreas or from an injection. The outcome is the same. Insulin works the same no matter where it's coming from, no matter the source. High insulin levels cause insulin resistance, and they also cause weight gain. We're going to talk about that a lot tomorrow. I'm sorry I misspoke and said we were going to talk about it today. But tomorrow for day 4, we're going to talk about the connection with insulin and weight gain, insulin and fatty liver disease, insulin, high insulin levels and insulin resistance causing kidney issues, vision problems, high blood pressure, wacky cholesterol, all of that we're going to cover tomorrow. So for day 3, this is our day 3 post. You can find it in the Facebook group. Again, you'll get an email this evening. But here's your 2 micro assignments for today. So first is to Google your medications, and you can just copy and paste or screenshot what you learn into the day 3 post. And then your other assignment for today is to do the same exact thing you did yesterday. You're going to choose a meal, either lunch or dinner, and you're going to test before and after. So before your first bite, right before your first bite, and then again 60 to 90 minutes later, and then you're going to do the math and see how much your blood sugar rose, following the guidelines that we gave you yesterday. So again, using that list of foods, the 3 columns of foods that we gave you to make your meal, and here's your instructions. This is up in the Facebook group and everything, and our goal is to keep you within a 30-point threshold. Some of you guys are going to see that your blood sugar goes down, in which case, great job. Give yourself a pat on the back. That's something to celebrate. So are we clear on our 2 micro assignments today? Assignment 1, Google your medications, share it with us in the day 3 post. Mainly, we're looking to see whether or not your blood sugar medications are increasing your insulin levels, right? Are they causing your pancreas to produce more insulin? If they are, then now you know that they're actually contributing to the problem. They're not addressing the root cause of the problem. And I'm not, guys, I want to be really, really clear. We are not telling you to stop your medications. We want to encourage you guys to let your numbers do the talking. Trust me, if you continue doing this, your blood sugar will come down. If you continue eating the way we're teaching you this week, your blood sugar will come down. And as your numbers come down, then that's how you get off medication. You let your numbers dictate when it's time to come off the medications. And you do that with doctor's orders. You do that under your doctor's guidance. Your doctor's going to support you. If you had blood sugar in the 200s and now you're going, doc, my blood sugar is like 140 now, and sometimes I'm having low blood sugar readings, they're going to have no choice but to take you off those meds. That's how our clients are getting off the medications. So hopefully that makes sense. We don't want anyone discontinuing their medications prematurely, because that can cause a definite spike in your blood sugar. We don't want you doing that. So please continue taking your medications as prescribed. If you start having low blood sugar readings, that means it's time to come off your medications and have that conversation with your doctor. And if you have a low blood sugar reading, you absolutely have to eat some carbohydrates in that moment. You break the rules. You eat some sugar, you eat some carbohydrates to bring your blood sugar back up. And Mike, yes, tomorrow we'll be talking about all the symptoms, including neuropathy. Absolutely. So that's day 3, guys. Fun hanging out with you all. Hopefully, hopefully we got your wheels turning, and hopefully you guys have a clear understanding of insulin, the hormone insulin, and how it works, and how you guys are all walking around with chronically high insulin levels, and how we can repair that and get you to a place where you're insulin sensitive again. Day 4, let me just quickly go over. Yep. So day 4, we're going to talk about signs and symptoms of insulin resistance. And we're going to talk about that connection with weight gain, obesity, or those of you who are underweight, how we can also harness insulin to our advantage there. And then just remember the guidelines for the meals for the remainder of this challenge. You're going to use it's in the Facebook group. We posted it with the day 3 post, but it's the 3 columns, and we really want you guys focusing on that first column of animal protein. That's your most blood sugar friendly column right there. That's going to prevent your blood sugar spikes and really buffer any carbs that you eat. So really focusing on filling up on the animal protein. It's going to keep you nice and satiated. It's very nutritious. Second column is your low carb vegetables. Third column is your natural fats. So you're going to make a meal following those guidelines. We want you to eat a big satiating meal, test before, and 60 to 90 minutes later, you're going to stay within a 30-point threshold if you follow that. And you guys do that consistently. You will be very happy with your next A1C. All right, that wraps up day 3. Really fun hanging out with you guys. I'm glad that this training made sense. And we'll see you over in the Facebook group where we have Callie, Tiana, and Katie all supporting thousands of you this week. And then we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place for day 4. All right, you guys, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. All right, I think we are live. Let's see. All right, I think we're live for the 5-day blood sugar challenge. If you all could do me a favor and say hello in the chat, let me know that you can hear me and see me on this beautiful Monday morning. I hope you guys are all having an awesome day so far and had an awesome weekend. I know that we've got a lot of first timers signed up for our 5-day challenge this time around, so it's always a little hard on day 1 for people to find us in the Facebook group, find my Facebook Live, but I see we have Dee and Kristen and Gerald. Hello, everybody. Patsy's here. Awesome. So a good bunch of you guys have already found our Facebook Live. Hi, Bob, Mary, Cheryl. I see some familiar faces in the chat. Jackie, Mary. Awesome. Hi, everybody. Hi, Katrina. Shoni, Christina, Callie's here, Kim, Debbie, Cindy, Tracy. Oh, I love seeing the familiar faces, you guys. Charlene. Oh man, I can't even keep track. So many of you guys. Awesome. So we'll hang tight for just a few minutes because it takes some people a little bit to find the Facebook Live, especially on day 1 when we're still getting oriented. So we'll kind of all just hang out here together for a few minutes and give everybody a chance to find us. Hi, Arik, Karen, Roslyn, Elisa, Mona, Holly, Sue. Awesome. Guys, tell us where you're joining from. We've got people all over the U.S. We've got clients all the way over in Alaska. We have clients in Florida and North Carolina, unfortunately being hit by those big storms.